Welcome. Our topic for today is about ignition system. In this discussion we covered electronic ignition system, types of ignition system, why electronic ignition system, components of ignition system, working of ignition system, advantages of electronic ignition system. Electronic ignition system. Electronic ignition uses electronic controls which replace the electromechanical components used in earlier generation vehicles. It creates the electric impulses and supplies them to the spark plugs to ignite the air-fuel mixture. Electronic ignition does not use the electromechanical parts as the same as the older system. However, it uses an electronic switching device which sends electrical impulses to the spark plugs and thereby ignites the fuel. Electronic ignition also has the ability to maintain correct ignition timing. And, at the same time, it gives a constant output of high current. Types ignition system. Various types of ignition systems were used lately that are glow plug ignition system, magneto ignition system, electric coil or battery ignition system. But all these systems have their own limitations that are: glow plug ignition system is the oldest of all and is obsolete because of its many limitations. Glow plug ignition system has a problem of causing uncontrolled combustion due to the use of electrode as a ignition source, which is solved later after the introduction of magneto ignition system in which electrodes are replaced by spark plug. Unlike magneto ignition, glow plug produces high exhaust emission due to the incomplete combustion. Magneto ignition system. It is the system introduced to overcome the limitations of old ignition systems, but it has its own limitations. It depends on the engine speed, so shows starting problem due to low speed at the starting of the engine, which is later solved with the introduction of battery coil ignition system in which battery becomes the energy source for the system. Electric coil ignition or battery ignition system. System is the latest of all above and is being used from long time due to its better efficiency and accuracy, but it also shows some limitations. Less efficient with the high-speed engines. High maintenance required due to mechanical and electrical wear of the contact breaker points. Why electronic ignition system? Since in the modern automobile new technologies are introduced and it is found that use of sensors and electronic component gives more effective and accurate outputs than that of mechanical components, so the use of sensors with electronic controlled unit becomes essential to fulfill the needs of modern high-power and high-speed automobiles or hyper-series of automobiles, so to fulfill the need for high performance, high mileage and greater reliability has led to the development of electronic ignition system. Components of ignition system. Battery. It is the powerhouse of the ignition system as it supplies the necessary energy to the ignition system. Same as battery coil ignition system. Battery is the source of the electric power when the engine is stationary. It also supplements the power from the generator when it is not turning fast to produce 12 volts. Ignition switch. It is the switch used in ignition system which governs the on and off of the system, same as the battery coil ignition system. The ignition switch is usually mounted on the steering column or dashboard, and controls the flow of current between the battery and ignition system. Ignition control module or control unit of ignition system. It is the brain or programmed instruction given to the ignition system which monitors and control the timing and intensity of the spark automatically. It is the device that receives voltage signals from the armature and set the primary coil to on and off. It can be placed separately outside the distributor or can be placed in electronic control unit box of the vehicle. Armature. Contact breaker points of battery ignition system is replaced by an armature which consists of a reluctor with teeth, the rotating part, vacuum advance and a pickup coil to catch the voltage signals. Electronic module receives the voltage signals from the armature in order to make and break the circuit, which in turn sets the timing of the distributor to accurately distribute current to the spark plugs. Ignition coil. Same as the battery ignition coil system. Ignition coil is used in electronic ignition system to produce high voltage to the spark plug. Ignition coil. The coil consists the metal casing containing two sets of insulated wire windings on a soft iron central core. The collapse of the magnetic fields generated around the primary windings produce the height current in the secondary winding, which goes through the distributor to the spark plugs. Ignition of distributor. As the name indicates, it is the device used to distribute the current to the spark plugs of the multi-cylinder engine. The distributor directs the flow of high-tension current from the coil through the rotor arm, and distributes it to each spark plugs in turn. Spark plug. Spark plug is used to generate spark inside the cylinder. The height current from the distributor passes down the central core of the spark plug, then produces a spark as it jumps the gap to the side electrode. This ignites the fuel-air mixture in the cylinder. Working of the ignition system. The conventional ignition system consists of two sets of circuits, windings, primary and secondary. The battery supplies 12 volts current to the ignition coil through the contact breaker points. It charges the primary windings and also magnetizes the core of the coil. However, the secondary winding is not electrically connected to the primary winding. Its one end is grounded and other end passes through a heavily insulated cable into the distributor cap. When you turn on the ignition switch, the current passes through the primary winding to the ground, earth, through the contact points. The rotating cam is attached to the distributor's drive shaft that is driven by the engine. When the drive shaft rotates, it turns the cam. When the cam pushes the movable breaker arm, it lifts from its seat. Thus, it breaks the contact. As soon as the contacts break, it induces the secondary winding with high voltage current of around 20,000 to 25,000 volts. This high voltage current then passes through the high tension cable and reaches the top of the distributor cap. The distributor cap sits on the distributor's drive shaft and rotates in the direction of the drive shaft. While doing so, it aligns with the high tension cables corresponding to each spark plug. The engineers designed the alignment of the drive shaft with the engine in such a way that the lobes of the cam open the contact points at the end of the compression stroke of each cylinder. Then, the high voltage current passes on to the respective spark plug that creates the spark. Advantages of electronic ignition system. The electronic ignition systems are more efficient. They also support higher engine horsepower levels than the older mechanically controlled systems. The most important advantage of this system is that it is circuit-based rather than mechanically controlled. It controls the flow of electric current accurately and reliably by using sensors, electrical switches, and transistors. These systems are also very durable. Thus, the electronic ignition system is better than the mechanically rotating distributor head in all respects. Due to its high level of precision, it helps in the complete combustion of the air-fuel mixture in the engine. Thus, it results in better fuel economy as well as lower emission. It also supports many systems that use an electronic control. Denso is one of the leading manufacturers of the ignition systems. If you enjoying reading and watching of this video, please like this video, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.